Cinderella has returned.
That me?
Welcome back from Disney World,
thank
Jessie.
you.
Her first time there and she hated it, people. Tells you everything you need to know about Jessie. But I'm Emerson. I love Disney. And this is The Sweat, which if you start watching now, your lineups could be absolutely perfect in less than 1 hour.
And if you know Emerson, you know not to believe anything he says. I did not hate Disney.
Yes, she
and
did.
A loaded rundown is coming your way. Who to pay up for on the ice, NFL free agent frenzy, and despite there not being a game until Thursday, some NBA chase or fade.
Why the hell not?
So let's get cooking with our PGA panel first. DK Live's Matt Jones, Pat Perry of the Tour Junkies, and DFS expert Jeff Eisenband.
All right, it's PGA high or low, gentlemen. So are the following odds to win the WGC-Mexico too high or too low? Pretty self-explanatory, starting with Phil Mickelson, who seeks to build on his sizzling play when he defends the title that revitalized his career. Lefty, whose sculpted calves have been freed now that the tour allows players to wear shorts during practice rounds and pro-ams, is plus 2,500 to repeat. So, too high or too low? Let's start with you, Jeff. I know how much you love to fawn over his legs.
I loved Phil's calves today, and I love the way that Phil's playing. So I think these odds at 2,500 are even too high. I think they should be even lower, just because the way Phil's played. I mean, he's won a tournament this year. You could argue he should have won a second tournament. He was that close. He's the defending champion. If someone told me that he was the favorite, I wouldn't be surprised.
What do you think here, Pat? You feel good about these odds?
I'm going to agree with Jeff here. I think they're too high. When you look at it, I mean, he's obviously in great form. He was at the same number just a couple weeks ago at Pebble Beach. And what did he do? He won. I was on it when he was on that number. I would gladly take that number again for this tournament. Jeff said it. He won here last year. He's on fire. So I think the number's too high.
Matt, too high, too low? If you want to roster this guy in DFS, he's 9,300, by the way.
Yeah, I guess I'm starting off on an island here.
That's okay.
I'm going to say it's a bit too low for me. My model put him at plus 3,000, so pretty close. I don't think it's like egregious by any means. Last week, I guess it could have been, a Pebble hangover or something, but just seemed like he couldn't get into a rhythm. And in this field, he's going to need to be pretty flawless. So I'm going to go a little bit too low there.
Cool.
But did you see the calves?
I did see the calves.
How about it?
Which
huh?
has to be worth a couple points here.
Okay, true, fair enough. Well, Mickelson won this tournament in a playoff against Justin Thomas, who looked far from fantastic yesterday in the final round of the Genesis Open. He is the favorite to win this year at plus 700. Too high or too low for you, Pat?
For me, this one's too low. I think that, JT is coming in on fire. I will say this. I'm not putting a whole lot into Sunday's round for any of these guys. I think it was just one of those things where they were tired. They had to play 36 holes basically on Sunday. And so, I think that JT just kind of ran into a buzzsaw, got tired at the end. I think the wind and the weather just got to him. But for me, it's still too short. I think he should be maybe around that plus 1,000 number. So I'm going to say too low for JT this week.
Pat, do you agree too low? Or Matt, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to go the opposite here too. Yeah, the way that he's obviously Sunday, like we all saw the shank, and that I think we can pretty easily excuse that. But the way that he's playing so far this year, like he's averaging almost 2 strokes on approach per round, which is like Tiger levels. So I don't think I think I would pay even for a lower number here for him.
Are you on the same page as Pat and Matt here, Jeff?
I think that it's too high, and that's so hard to say when it's plus 700. But you look at what Justin Thomas is doing. I don't care that he's technically number 4 in the world. In my mind, he's playing the best golf in the world right now. Top 3 in 3 of his 4 events this year, and you're telling me he's playing an event that he was 2nd last year and 5th the year before. I mean, it's almost like you have to throw out some of the stat book and say that the odds should be even better for the favorite in my mind.
All right, well, Thomas and Mickelson will be joined by Dustin Johnson in an absolutely stacked feature group for the first 2 rounds. DJ is a 2-time winner of this event, is plus 1,000 to hoist the trophy for a 3rd time. How do you feel about those odds, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too low for me. I feel like last couple weeks he's been playing whack-a-mole with his game a little bit. And like last week, just the par 3s in general, like he went 8 over just on the par 3s. Like he's going to have to get that sorted out. which leads me to believe that maybe his distance control isn't 100%. And at altitude this week, I think that could cause a problem for him.
Yeah, dude's going to be bombing it off the tee. What do you think here, Jeff? Another top 10 over the weekend at Riviera.
Yeah, but, I think this is too low, and I think that Dustin came on at the end. He was kind of a letdown at Pebble Beach. He played well the first tournament of the year at the Century. Then he went through a Middle East swing, and when he came back, I just like whack-a-mole is, I think, a good way to describe it. I'm not saying I'd be surprised if Dustin Johnson wins this event. It should also be noted that he's only won this event once in Mexico. This is the third year it's being played in Mexico City. So, that's just a little caveat there.
Yes, so it was before down in Miami, before he made the move to Mexico. Pat, your thoughts on the odds here for Dustin Johnson? Where do you sit? Plus 1,000.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the other gentleman here, too. I believe that it is just a little bit too low, slightly too low. It might be just about right, but I'm going to go low. Look, I mean, he's coming in. This is now his third or fourth event in a row. He just has not played. He barely made the cut at Pebble. I mean, he basically had to make a birdie on his last hole to make it inside the cut line. Didn't play well at all, really, by his standards last week. So I think it's just a little bit too low for him. And look, this is a course where his length could be an advantage, but you know what? I just don't see him playing that well this week again. And so I think this is a little bit too low for him.
Guys, Jordan Spieth fired an 81 in the final round of the Genesis Open on Sunday. His second highest score as a pro. He is plus 3,500 to win south of the border. That too high or too low for you, Jeff?
I think it's too high, and Jordan Spieth is just, so hard to predict, and part of it is his emotion. You saw that round just unravel yesterday. But there have been glimpses of a traditional a couple of years ago, Jordan Spieth, he still has to fix that putting. That's what's holding him back right now. That's what made him a star. But I just feel like he still is Jordan Spieth, and these odds to me are just too high.
We saw him unravel, Pat, so are these too high?
I agree with Jeff. These are too high. I said earlier that I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into the way they played on Sunday. Look, I mean, he shot 10 over 81. I mean, come on. That round just sort of unraveled on him. It's not something that I'm gonna bring into this week. Jeff was right. I mean, his game is coming around. He's even said it. I mean, his ball striking has been really good. So it's just got to be his putter that's got to get working, and he's got to put 4 good rounds together. I think he can do that. So yeah, I think this is a little bit too high for him this week.
Matt, do you agree with the guys?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, he went from 54 bad holes to 36 bad holes to 12 bad holes. So he's on the right track now. But you definitely see, like the guys are mentioning, you see the glimpses. And I wouldn't be shocked if he showed up in a tournament like this.
All right.
I'd be happy with an 81.
Oh, slowly but surely.
Me too, personally.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You're not on tour. Sorry, Jeffrey.
That's all right.
Pat, you're free to go for the night. Matt and Jeff, you two are on a 30-minute break until we need you back here for PGA Price Check. So take a nap, walk your dog, do whatever it is you feel like doing here for the next half hour.
As for what's up next, that would be an NBA playoff push edition of Chase or Fade.
Hey, it's Brendan Glasheen, and with this DraftKings Fantasy Flash, there are more layers to add to the Bryce Harper and Manny Machado never-ending free agency. Bryce first, MLB Network insider John Heyman reported Sunday afternoon negotiations between the Phillies and Harper, quote, appear to be intensifying. But Heyman also mentioned teams linked to the big lefty slugger before. Padres, Giants, White Sox haven't been told. They're out of the chase, so nothing's actually close. Shocker. As for Manny Machado, there are multiple reports. The star infielder has a hefty contract offer on the table for the Padres. 8 years, upwards of $240 million, as high as $280 million. Does Machado want to go to San Diego? That's the question, because he might not get a more serious pitch from anywhere else. No rush or anything, guys. The Phils open their spring training slate this Friday. Padres start Saturday. Can one of these guys just blink and sign already?
All-Star Weekend is over, and the NBA is in playoff push mode. So here to help us get our heads in the game is DK Live's Gary and Thorne and Pierce Dietrich, plus Adam Mancuda of Phantom Sports.
I like your shirt today, Pierce.
I don't know if it's playoff push mode yet. It's a little early on that.
Okay, wow, okay.
Hey, listen, man.
Take a breath,
Don't
Pierce.
shoot the messengers, a.k.a. hosts. Talk to our producer.
It's the name of the segment.
Deal with it. It's time for a stretch run edition of Chase or Fade. So agree or disagree with the following statements regarding the NBA's playoff push after the All-Star break. Gary and James Harden has been the leader all year, so Chase or Fade that he will have the highest fantasy points per game total down the stretch.
Yeah, I've got to chase this. I really can't figure out a way you don't chase this. Even if you want to play the Chris Paul card and say that he's back and healthy and, maybe sits out the occasional back-to-back in the final 25 games of the season. But even Harden's usage rate with Paul on the court is almost 36%. That would still be almost 3% higher than Joel Embiid, who's in second place. So you look at the fact he's also leading the league in minutes per game. There's just so much quality and quantity when it comes to James Harden. I can't seem to think of who would be the guy to overtake him in the second half.
Pierce, I know you do not feel like being here right now, but can you answer this question?
No. Well, look, in defense of the playoff push, I don't know if a playoff push exists in the NBA.
That's a good
people
point.
Are going to make the playoffs.
That's
the
a
guys
good
that
point.
make the playoffs. Now, I'm going to fade, and I know it's dangerous to fade Harden here, but I am going to play the Chris Paul angle. His numbers have dropped. You look at his salary, it peaked at $13,800. It's now down to $11,600. It could drop even more. He still is a great player. He's still going to get a ton of fantasy points, but he's not going to put up the insane points that he puts up every single night. Meanwhile, there are two players that are continuing to put up big-time points, and they're getting better every game, and it's Westbrook and Paul George. Those guys are going to get better every single night. They feel like they're starting to gel into something. Those guys could definitely flirt with being the most point per get, whatever you want to say at the end of the season.
Hey, Adam, James Harden will have the highest fantasy points per game total down the stretch. Chase or fade?
I'm going to fade it as well, and the reason for that is twofold. One, I think also with Quinn Capella eventually coming back into this lineup, he'll take a few shots away, some of those low post points as well. But to me, it's about Giannis. I think, again, second half of the season, this guy, he showed up again in the All-Star game yesterday. I know it's an exhibition, but he's ready to dominate the second half. He wants to put the Bucks on his back and take them right to the promised land. Really, you got to remember, who else outside of Chris Middleton on that team is really going to score? I mean, they got Mirotic. Hopefully he'll get healthy and play in the second half. I love his usage. I mean, he could do it all. And I also think just with Harden, they're going to have to relax on him a little bit, especially with the back-to-backs. He's played so many minutes with so many guys hurt. Maybe they rest him a little bit, get him ready for the playoffs. So I'd go with Giannis. I love the Paul George thought there. The only concern I have about Westbrook is that jump shot. It looks like my jump shot when I go play at the Y. So I'm against Westbrook, but the Paul George call, I like that as well.
Guys, Team LeBron won the All-Star game. Meanwhile, the Kings' real team, the Lakers, obviously, are currently 3 games out of a playoff spot. So, Pierce, chase or fade that LeBron's fantasy points per game total will rise down the stretch as he tries to get the Lakers into the postseason with a little...
A push.
Okay, there is a playoff push here, and it's immediate, and it's now. They've lost 3 of the last 4 games since LeBron's been back. They've got to do something. They got to do it quick. They're 10th sitting right now, and they've got the Mavs and the T-Wolves behind them, and I think those teams have gotten better. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Lakers out of this pretty quickly and see LeBron taking it off, working on his barbershop TV show, taking more games off, maybe a phantom injury. It's just not going to happen this year. He'll have a good floor, but I can't see him increasing his usage. I know they play at a fast pace, and the games that he does play, he should score a lot of points. But this team's garbage. They're going nowhere.
Wow, Adam, do you agree?
No, I actually am on the opposite side again on this one, simply because LeBron's done so much resting already this season with that injury. I just don't see him resting towards the end of the season. He wants to put his best foot forward, for this season. He wants to develop these guys like Ingram, build up their trade value, if anything, so they get shipped out for Anthony Davis potentially in the offseason. I think he's going to try to make the guys around him better. I think he's going to put a lot on his shoulders as well, try to get them into the playoffs. Even as an 8 seed, no one's going to want to play them as an 8 seed. Think about it that way. Like LeBron as an 8 seed in his first year in LA. I think that would be a great storyline. I think he's going to push for it. I expect LeBron to have a great and huge last couple of months in LA and try to get this team into the playoffs, which would be remarkable given, again, all the injuries he's had, the team's had, obviously some of the discord there with Magic Johnson in the front office. So I'm with LeBron on this one.
There are currently only...
No, Gary in.
What? We have to get Gary in?
Yeah, don't you want to let Gary in? Gary in.
Yeah?
I didn't forget about
Okay.
you. Go ahead.
My turn?
What's on me?
That's okay, buddy. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unprecedented. I understand the narrative, but by this point in the season, the last 7 years, LeBron's on cruise control in the East. So I think I'm more towards the chase end of this. I mean, there is room to grow in LeBron's numbers. The surface stats still look fantastic, and you kind of maybe have to figure out a weird path to get him to more than like 28, 8, and 8. I understand that might seem hard, but you go back and look, this is a guy who's led the NBA in average minutes per game each of the last 2 seasons. He's about 2.5 minutes fewer per game, so a little bit of opportunity to expand his game in that particular area, just from a volume perspective. And even his assist rate, it's down at 36%. That's way lower than it was the last 2 seasons in Cleveland, so maybe he just becomes ball dominant again. The assists go up, the double-doubles go up, the points go up. I do think that he's going to have a little bit of a playoff push in this second half.
You can't say that around Pierce. Okay? Am I clear for takeoff?
Yeah, you're cleared.
There are currently only 7 players averaging more than 50 fantasy points per game on the season. Adam, please chase or fade that Nikola Jokic will up his game, end the season averaging more than 50 fantasy points per game as the Nuggets push for the top seed in the West, currently averaging right around 48. Nuggets 2 games back of the Warriors in the West.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I love Jokic. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. Look, I don't think he's going to play every night. I think the Nuggets are in one of those spots in the West where they're going to pull off on the gas a little bit towards the second half, get ready for the playoffs. I think with some of their injured players coming back towards the second half, we've already seen it with Barton. We've seen it a little bit with Murray. They'll get some of their pieces back as well. I think his usage in terms of scoring will come down a little bit. Still, his playmaking ability and ability to rebound, obviously, are unprecedented, obviously, with a lot of the players in the league. So I actually like Jokic a lot. I just think he's not going to go higher than 50. I'm hoping I'm wrong because I'm going to definitely root for him going forward. But I just think he'll come down a little more towards the end of the season here.
Gary, and can't forget about you here. Does he hit the half-century mark?
I think he's going to. Yeah, I'm going to chase this. I mean, I think that it's a really good point that they've had so many injured players that if they do ever get back up to 100%, that would have to be concerning for his overall ceiling. But so much of his game is facilitation anyway. I just don't think I have that much of a worry in that particular regard. And I think we've seen kind of what his role can be through 7 games in February. In that span, he's second in the NBA in passes per game and second in the NBA in touches per game. He is one of the most highly utilized players. There is very rarely a Nuggets possession where the ball doesn't end up in Jokic's hands for at least a couple seconds. So in that 7-game February run, he's averaging almost 55 DKFP per game. So if the role looks anything like it's looked the last half month, he's going to easily do this.
Pierce, what do you think? There's some people saying he could possibly be in the hunt for a league MVP here.
Well, I think we already have to give that to James Harden for the first half of the season.
Yeah.
If it wasn't about the first half of the season, give it to Paul George. But I like the Joker here, continue to do this, even if like his points per game isn't that high. So if other guys get healthy, that's not really going to hurt him that much. He's still going to get around 20 points per game. He's still getting double digits, almost 20 rebounds. And the assists have gone up every single season. He's got his highest career assist numbers with the team that's been injured. If they get healthy, the assists are going to go up. He's like Westbrook at center. I know he's not running around the court, but like Gary mentioned, everything goes through him. And if they get healthy, things will still continue to go through him. I like him as a 50-point floor guy.
All right, well, the 76ers have a new super starting 5, and it's been the top talk of the town. We know that.
Yeah.
But Gary and Chaser fade that you should avoid, yes, I did say avoid, any of their starting 5 down the stretch, since it's going to be too hard to figure out usage night in and night out.
Good point.
I mean, I would like 80% chase this, but I guess if it's not 100%, I have to fade it. I still think you can trust Joel Embiid. I understand that the usage rate hasn't quite been what we've gotten used to in the 4 games we've seen with the Fantastic 5 starting lineup. I think the 11 games prior to the Tobias Harris trade, he had a usage rate above 32% in all 11 of those games. Since the trade, he's been under that number 3 of the 4 times. So that's obviously concerning, but at the same time, we're talking about someone coming from such a high place in terms of usage rate. He could stand to lose a couple percentage points and still be completely viable. I still think you can use Embiid in plus matchups against soft interiors. And I still think most nights, especially with maybe the consensus being to get off of these guys, if you're telling me I can have Joel Embiid at a low ownership, that's a perfect GPP play.
Ooh, Pierce, you think there could be some upside here with low ownership?
Yeah, I'll fade avoiding this. We haven't seen enough yet, but I got to imagine eventually they're going to start staggering who they put in. They're not going to put all 5 in at the same time. We're going to see what they do with the Golden State Warriors, where you could see Tobias Harris running with the second team and getting a lot of usage. It's going to change night to night, and they're just too fast-paced of a team to really completely avoid. Joel Embiid's always going to have his usage. No one's going to cut into that, so he's always going to be in play. It's going to be a night to night. You got to see how the rotation works out for Jimmy Butler or Tobias Harris. Not a big Simmons guy, and I compared Redick the other night to Klay Thompson, and I know Julian hated that, but they're similar in a way that 1 out of every 10 games, they're going to break a slate. You don't want to play Klay very often. Every once in a while, he'll go crazy, just like J.J. Redick will.
Adam, where do you stand on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to fade it as well. I think Embiid at this point, he's a ton of value, especially with the guys around him. He's another one that, you have to check the lineups every night. Are they going to rest him coming down the stretch as they kind of try to work with his minutes as they get ready for the playoffs? I think, as I mentioned last week on the show, this is a much better trade from a real basketball standpoint for the Sixers than it is from a fantasy perspective. Adding a guy like Harris is incredible value to them. Another guy that can score on the floor, spread it out. You'll get Redick those shots. But for me, Embiid is a solid player every night. Simmons is going to be a consistent player every night. The guys that I'd be worried about are Butler, Redick, and obviously Harris. But you got to see again how it shakes out. It's only been a handful of games, so let's take another week or so, 2 weeks, and then we'll get ready, and we'll obviously be able to have more of a data set on how the matchups are working out and when you can trust them.
All righty, excellent work as always, gentlemen. Go take a break. We do need you for some NFL free agency chatter coming up. Jessie and I are hitting the ice with our favorite Canadian next. Oh, sorry, Garion.
Happy Monday, people. I'm Tara Lenazak, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Mike Moustakas will reportedly be returning to the Brewers on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Milwaukee is happy to have him as a mainstay in their lineup, and so is their reigning NL MVP, Christian Yelich, who took to Twitter to express his excitement with a dancing moose. Touche, Yelich. The 30-year-old Moustakas arrived in Milwaukee at last year's trade deadline and helps give the Brewers offense a boost down the stretch. He hit .256 with 8 home runs and 33 RBI in 54 games for a team that came within 1 game of reaching the World Series. With Moustakas penciled into the lineup at third base, this likely means Travis Shaw will see the majority of his playing time at second. Shaw held his own at the position after making the move across the diamond when Moustakas arrived last season. With a full year of Moustakas and the addition of catcher Yasmani Grandal, the Brewers have a chance to be one of the best offensive teams in the National League this year. Milwaukee currently has $123.3 million on the books for 2019, which makes for the highest payroll in franchise history.
There are 5 games on the NHL slate this evening, and the only reason I know that is because I read the fantasy hockey cheat sheet available at DraftKings.com/playbook. And this guy writes a lot of them. Jeff Ulrich, you may remember him from such segments as NFL Chase or Fade and PGA Pin Placement.
But right now,
all terrible, by the way.
Yep.
Jeff, right now we only need you for NHL opening face-off when we choose between top options at each position. Yeah, we're not going to make you do all that stuff. So we have 6 centers priced over $7K tonight. A lot of options here. Who's your top choice?
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a night where you're really going to have to nail if you're going to pay up for center, because we got some big games on the board just for fantasy purposes. Obviously, a lot of weaker teams going up and some big puck totals. So for me, I'm either looking to go towards the Tampa Bay guys, Stamkos, Point, or going to Taves. And I think when it comes down to it, the recent form of Steven Stamkos, 10 points in his last 5 games. When he gets in this mode, that's when you get the multiple goal games from him. And that's why I like him in this matchup. Columbus isn't a terrible team or anything, but again, I mean, he got a 6.5 puck total. They're pretty big favorites. Stamkos has just been rolling. So I think between him and Point, you just pay up a little bit. You get Stamkos, and I think you get more upside there with the goals. But again, going to Taves there isn't a bad option either, because the Senators and them, I mean, yeah, bad team.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey, only 2 players who will cost you $8,000 or more on the wing, Ovechkin and Patrick Kane. Both have scored in back-to-back games here. So which one should the folks at home pay up for, roster, and why?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's some game theory reasons why you could roster Alex Ovechkin and GPPs tonight. I mean, it just comes down to everyone's going to be targeting this Chicago Ottawa game. I mean, you just look at it on paper. You got a puck total of over 7 between the Sens and the Blackhawks. With the Blackhawks actually decent favorites, which kind of sounds funny because they're terrible, but Ottawa's more terrible, and they're starting a terrible goalie, and Patrick Kane has been rolling. So when it really comes down to it, I mean, the Capitals haven't been playing that good. On the road against LA with the puck total of just 5.5, I think you just got to grab Kane here, especially for cash game purposes. Again, I get that the argument where you could go Ovechkin over Kane at GPPs, and that's fine. But when it comes down to it, it's clearly Kane for me.
Okay, well, on the blue line, we're spending a lot of money up front, so we're going to try to save you a little here. So you got Boston's Charlie McAvoy coming off a 6 DK fantasy point night in his last game. His price tag is $4,700 with the Bruins visiting San Jose. Vegas D-man Shea Theodore has been solid as of late, and he costs just $100 less in Colorado. Great. So who is the better play here?
Yeah, I mean, it feels a little bit like recency bias, but again, I mean, McAvoy for me has kind of got to be the play. I mean, the Vegas power play it's a little bit random in the fact that they don't really have a clear number one unit. They mix it up a little bit. They kind of split time evenly sometimes. And Theodore, he doesn't really see that much ice. I mean, he just doesn't see that much ice time, a little bit of special teams. He has been playing better of late, but I mean, McAvoy's come back from injury. He just gets more ice time. The matchup isn't terrible. I mean, again, it's projected to be a pretty high-scoring matchup, even though the Bruins are underdogs. I mean, I think I'd just rather take McAvoy, who's been getting solid power play time and is just going to be on the ice more. So I'd go with old Charlie here over Shea.
As we mentioned, 5-game slate, so not a lot to choose from between the pipes. But who is your top play in goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting night in goaltender land because it's Andrei Vasilevskiy has got to be the top play. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious to most people playing tonight. He's 8,100, but 4 wins over his last 4 games, coming up back-to-back shutouts. And the matchup doesn't look that great against Columbus. It's not necessarily like the best matchup in the world, but there's no heavy favorites on the slate tonight. And then you look at the other goaltenders, and I mean, do you really want to trust like Delia versus in Chicago? Not that much. I mean, he's only $100 cheaper, so you don't really want to go there. Phoenix Copley, again, not really a guy you necessarily want to trust. So if I'm not paying up for Vasilevskiy, I'd probably go down to Subban maybe if you really want to get a little bit risky. I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights, small favorites tonight. Subban's been playing really well. I think you could go that way in cash games. I think for GPPs, though, the guy I might want to take a risk on is Tuukka Rask, who's actually played quite well. I think he's got 4 wins now in a row. And I mean, the Bruins match up pretty good against San Jose. San Jose is obviously a good team. You're no lock for a win here, but GPP, Rask is going to be like nothing owned. He's playing well. You get that big win on the road. He could face 40 shots and maybe come away with a win. So I like Rask for GPPs, but Vasilevskiy, you got to pay up for him tonight. It just feels like that kind of night.
All right, Jeff, we're going to get your slate approved pick momentarily when we have you back for Tears of Joy. But until then, here's Mike Francesa and Adam Kaufman talking the latest and greatest in the world of sports.
Here with Mike Francesa, host of Mike's On, WFAN New York. Adam Kaufman with you. And Mike, multiple NFL owners have reportedly been trying to convince NBA Commissioner Adam Silver to take over the NFL as commish, of course, ousting Roger Goodell. Now, he said he hasn't given any thought to it, but he's worked wonders for the association. We know that. The NFL, we've talked about this in the past, it works differently. Would this work with Silver?
This is the biggest non-story and the biggest nonsense story of all time.
It is February.
First of all, it's February, and that's what you get. The NFL just gave this man a 5-year, $200 million contract. He's only a year into the contract. How are they getting rid of him? They're not getting rid of him right now. Why? Because at a cocktail party, some owner who had a couple of gin and tonics went up to Silver and said, "I'd love you to be our commissioner someday." That's what we're talking about here. Listen, I like Adam Silver. He's a smart guy. I think I know him fairly well. I know Goodell well. We don't get along very much, but I've known him a long time. I can say that we fought a lot, but there's not an ounce of truth to that. Right now, Goodell has, I'd say, incredible, or at least very strong support of the owners. They like that he's a pit bull. He's not a good PR commissioner. He's not a good public commissioner, but he's a great infighter. He wins their battles. He has kept the collective bargaining and kept the players part of it at bay. He has kept the older players at bay. He has handled and really quelled all the CTE talk. He has done all that magnificently. He's just terrible when it comes to public relations stances because you know what? He doesn't care. He has a hard edge, and it comes across that he has a hard edge. He doesn't do things with any sophistication or any smoothness. You know, a perfect example. At the Super Bowl, he should have thrown the Saints a bone. They were hurt. He didn't. And they got mad, and they were furious, and they kicked up their heels. That's typical Goodell. He throws salt in the wound. He doesn't put a bandage on the wound. He puts salt in the wound, but he's not going anywhere.
Well, let's talk baseball. Of course, not run by Roger Goodell or Adam Silver. That's Rob Manfred, and I don't need to talk about him. I just needed a transition. Spring training is underway, Mike, and we got exhibition games coming up later this week. Aside from the Bryce Harper and Manny Machado saga, which continues to drag on and on and on, probably will for weeks, what are you keeping your eye on this winter across baseball?
That's a big story, first of all. You know, it shows you that the owners think right now that they have the Players Association on the run for the first time in years. You don't have the squeaking that you used to have from Fear and Orza all the time. Fear and Orza would be screaming collusion. They'd be threatening lawsuits. That's their game. You're not hearing that right now. So they have the Players Association on the run a little bit. Players Association cannot like the idea that two of their biggest stars are out of work and pitches and catches are already in camp. That is outrageous for the players' side. So the owners are trying to really dig in their heels, and that's a story to watch. As far as the other stuff, I would have thought it was a perfect time to do the DH. He's still talking about it, and then Manfred says, well, we're not doing it this year. You know what? It's time to do the DH. It's going to happen. There's no way around it. The other rules, especially the one with the pitchers, and a pitcher had to pitch the three guys when he came in, unless it was 2 outs in the inning, was maybe the dumbest idea I've heard in 20 years. That is anti-baseball. It's anti-strategy. I mean, that just makes no sense. But speed up the game, I think they're right. Put in the DH, both leagues, uniform rules, do it. Do that. Streamline their video because their review is awful. And the other thing is, here's the one, and just do it, enforce it. Make the players stay in the batter's box. You are not allowed out of the batter's box without permission. If you do, it's a strike. You know what? You'll see the games will be a half hour shorter. Go watch a 1962 game or 63 game. Put in the video and see how fast the game moves. The players never get out of the box. That is what has changed the sport more than anything else, is every player between every pitch walks out of the batter's box.
A man who always gives his best, Mike Francesa. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we're talking football because even though we're just a few weeks removed from the Super Bowl, we're already counting the minutes until the sweet, sweet kickoff of next season. I can just feel the energy spewing from you.
Yeah.
Here to help are the same three guys who delivered basketball advice to you earlier in the show. DK Live's Gary and Thorne and Pierce Dietrich and Adam Mancuda of Phantom Sports.
So it's time for free agency frenzy. Wow. Let's go. What are the best landing spots for these free agents? We don't know. You tell us. So we've mostly talked offensive players in this segment, and for good reason, as individual defensive players don't play much of a role on DraftKings, but one interesting player is safety Earl Thomas. Thomas won't be returning to Seattle, so where do you think he finds a home in 2019, Garion?
I don't quite know where he finds a home. I've heard like the Packers could possibly be involved for his services, which would make sense. They were terrible in terms of pass defense by any metric, especially DVOA. I would say if I had my choice, though, I would definitely want him signing with the 49ers, where he's also been rumored. That would just be the most fun, as he would get to team up with former teammate Richard Sherman and get to take on the Seahawks twice this coming season. I think that's what we really all want. So that's the option I'm taking here. And look, San Francisco got some intriguing pieces on that defense as well. To have a captain like Earl Thomas in the back end would certainly help.
Pierce, what do you think? Where could he land? Where do you want to see him land?
Well, he could go anywhere. Apparently, everyone is signing with the 49ers if you've searched around the internet recently. But also with Thomas, he's got a connection everywhere. The Packers need him, and he's got a former coach or at least a game plan style with the Packers. The 49ers, he's got a former teammate in Sherman and also another coach. But I like the Cowboys. The Cowboys like to spend, and the defensive coordinator who designed the Legion of Boom is now the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. But he's probably got, Kevin Bacon connections to every team.
Okay, Adam, 49ers perhaps?
I like the Cowboys suggestion. He's the one that basically went out of his way to Jason Garrett and said, come get me. So to me, that's where his mindset is. I like the Richard Sherman connection, certainly in San Francisco. But again, how are they going to kind of go with their offseason? Are they going to go focus on the offense, try to get a guy like Antonio Brown? To me, I like the Packers suggestion, but I'd be very, very surprised. Remember where Earl Thomas went to school also? I believe he went to Texas. So I'd be surprised if he went anywhere but the Cowboys at this point.
Latavius Murray, built by UCF, played a backup role for the Vikings this past season, but still managed 6 rushing touchdowns on the season. Pierce, are his days as a starter over?
When were his days as a starter?
Oh,
for the Raiders, maybe?
Yeah. Come on. He was a Pro Bowler with them.
Yeah, well, if you look, though, when he was starting, Dalvin Cook got injured or Jerick McKinnon got injured. A lot of times he got the bulk of carries in Minnesota because there just wasn't anybody else there. In his defense, the Minnesota offensive line has been pretty terrible. He's still pretty young, 28 years old, so you don't know what you're going to get. I wouldn't give up on him just yet, but if I was a team, I wouldn't make him your number one guy. He's going to have to be a part of a combo or a tandem running backup. But that's basically what everyone runs anymore anyway. There's only, Ezekiel Elliott and Barkley, the only guys carrying the loads.
Adam, he says he wants to return to Minnesota, but also wants to be a starter. I'm not really sure Minnesota can offer both. Do you?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't know where his best options are. I mean, Oakland's running back situation's a mess. Maybe he goes back there to try to be a starter. But when you look around the league, they're really just, as he said, there's really just not that many options. So for me, I would expect him to go and carve out another role as a quality backup, maybe in a 60-40 split. But certainly not as a starter. Look, he filled it admirably. Had a couple big games this past year when Dalvin Cook went down. So, but look, he's going to stay on the roster. He's still talented enough. He certainly will get some money. He'll get paid a little bit. But again, maybe have to do a prove-it deal again this year heading into 2019.
I mean, Gary, would you say the Vikings have been lucky to have this guy, though, considering all the injuries to Cook?
I mean, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it would be he is just a harbinger of injuries and someone who's going to always take out the RB1 on whatever roster he signs with. So watch out, free agent class of 2019. I think Latavius Murray is a very skilled player. I think he's a viable piece on a 53-man roster. But it's like Pierce said, who's actually running with a starting running back at this point in the NFL? There's 5 teams. If you look by Pro Football Focus, just 4 running backs last season played 75% of their team's offensive snaps. Just 8 running backs played 60% of their team's offensive snaps. So I don't think there's a place that exists that would sign Latavius Murray and have him walk into a bell cow role. It's just not how football is played right now.
All right, guys. Wide receiver Donte Moncrief, not a great fit in Jacksonville this season, but did manage 48 receptions. Adam, does he still have value somewhere else?
Well, first, Emerson, where did his quarterback go to school? That prototypical quarterback university that I think you like to pump up every now and again.
Oh,
right?
UCF?
Oh,
UCF?
Sure.
Yeah, was that it?
Yeah, that was it. He was great in the Fiesta Bowl 5 years ago.
So he basically didn't have a quarterback last season. I'll spin it forward and say I think he's going to get a shot. The guy's talented enough. He could obviously stretch the field. He obviously had some big plays, even with Bortles as his quarterback. Look, when you look around the NFL, all these guys get second chances. All it takes is for him to land in the right system. I certainly think he's got enough, talent. He's young enough. He'll get an opportunity. Again, maybe a team like the 49ers misses out on Antonio Brown, needs to add some depth to their wide receiver room. Maybe a team like Oakland wants to get younger, pair Derek Carr, whoever the quarterback's going to be, with a younger wide receiver after the Martavis Bryant experiment kind of failed and they shipped out Amari Cooper. So I certainly think he'll get some opportunity here, and he'll be extremely, extremely happy to get away from Bortles.
Gary, what do you think? Where could he land? And does he still have a value?
I think he could still have value. Look, he was a monster at Ole Miss. It's not that long ago. And I think that he's still a talented guy. The issue here is, for as bad as Jacksonville's offense was set up to help a wide receiver, it's been mentioned, they didn't have much of a quarterback. They were a very run-oriented team. he still played the most snaps of any Jags wide receiver, around 78%. I just don't know where he's going to go, where he plays to a similar level of volume. And some of the teams that he's been sort of like mentioned with the past couple weeks, we're talking the Ravens, the Panthers. Those are, again, very run-oriented teams. So it doesn't seem like, unless he pops up with like, hey, now he's the Steelers wide receiver 3 or something like that, sure, he immediately becomes viable, but this is so much about landing spot, and I'm not liking the team names I'm hearing right now for Donte Moncrief being a wide receiver 2.
No reason to bring up his Ole Miss days. The SEC is absolutely overrated. We all know that.
Okay, settle down now. Pierce, what do you think?
Well, Gary only brings him up because he used to play him in college football DFS. I guarantee that's the reason why. Everybody played Moncrief back in the dark ages.
Beat Moncrief!
If he was so good, he wasn't a first-round pick, though.
Well,
he was
happens.
fine for the Colts, and you got to throw out last year with Bortles. The thing he's got going for him is the wide receiver class right now for free agents is just terrible. Randall Cobb is at the top of the list. Devin Funchess, Cole Beasley. He's going to get an opportunity at probably a pretty good team. The Broncos, they went all in, I guess, by going with Joe Flacco, and they've got no receivers. So Moncrief is probably an upgrade of what they got. So I would not be surprised to see Elway go after him.
Well, tight end Charles Clay was recently released by Buffalo. I'm sure you guys all saw that news. He's battled injuries these last few seasons, but could he be productive with the right team? Garian.
My notes, I have...
Have at it.
Meh. I believe I put meh. Charles Clay.
He puts the me in meh.
Cool.
Look, I'm a long-suffering Dolphins fan, so I even kind of remember when this guy was good, but I don't know. He's on the wrong side of 30. I just don't see a team, changing their offense or building an offense around Charles Clay. He's been linked to the Lions. I guess Stafford has a bit of a history with utilizing tight ends in the red zone, but nah, I cannot see the path where, 6 months from now we're talking about how important Charles Clay is to the Week 7 slate or something like that.
Pierce at 30, his best days are likely behind him, but another team could still get something out of him, maybe?
I can see one team where it works.
Where?
The Baltimore Ravens.
Oh.
You look at when he had success, he was Tyrod Taylor scrambling around. He was the safety valve, and he had some pretty good fantasy games, and he helped that team win some games. So Lamar Jackson scrambling around, dumping down to Charles Clay over and over. That's the only scenario with a scrambling quarterback that doesn't take risks.
And last but not least, Adam.
Yeah, I think that he's not going to win you any championships. He's not going to win you any money. But the fact is, there are so many high-powered offenses that this offseason may be looking for a tight end that if he falls into the right situation, you just never know. Think about it. Ben Watson's going to be gone. He's gone in New Orleans. If Gronk leaves, he could potentially wind up with his third AFC East team in the Patriots. You obviously have other situations where Detroit, obviously they need more weapons on offense after trading away some of their pieces and some of their pieces going in free agency. Maybe the Packers get rid of Jimmy Graham after one season. So you never know where he's going to end up. Is he going to win you any titles? No, but there's upside there, especially if you want to wait on a tight end next year or trying to find some value in any given week. So let's wait till we kind of jump down. But I like the Baltimore call. That's not bad, but they have like 12 tight ends on their roster. So we'll have to see, including a couple first-round picks with Hayden Hurst and Andrews. I guess Andrews wasn't the first-round pick. Hurst was last year, so we'll have to see how that kind of goes.
Yeah, teams could do much worse, Jessie.
How depressing is it to say at 30 his best years are probably behind him?
30. Yeah.
How old are you?
I get it. I'm 4 years older than 30.
Okay, you three are free to go after such excellent work. As for us, hockey is so nice. We're doing it twice. Tears of Joy with Jeff Ulrich is next.
Brendan Glasheen here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Odell Beckham Jr. to the Super Bowl champs. On Pro Football Talk Live earlier today, Chris Sims reported there's a very real possibility the Patriots could make a deal with the Giants for OBJ. Sims said the Pats were the most interested team pursuing OBJ during last offseason. That pursuit is exactly why the trade conversation stopped. Sims said the Giants may have gotten cold feet because New England wanted the All-Pro wideout. This follows social media chaos from over the weekend. OBJ commented on TB12, Tom Brady's Instagram post of his kids watching a sunset. Beckham simply wrote, "Love you, brother." Despite hoisting a 6th Lombardi trophy in the last 18 years just a few weeks ago, the Patriots are thin in some areas. wide receiver being one. That sticks out heading into the 2019 season. Bill Belichick has a great relationship with the Giants organization. Should they make a deal, I'm sure BB could entice Beckham by dusting off the Randy Moss in New England archives. And no need to worry about Beckham's past on a party boat if he's catching passes from the GOAT.
Our first hockey segment was such a massive success, we've decided to do it all over again. Jeff Ulrich is back, and we've got some tears of joy to get to, young man.
So we've talked about a lot of the guys that are the top options tonight in the top tiers. So let's start with your top picks in tier 5. Who are you going to go with here?
Well, look, I mean, I'm back to save the show. I just assumed Pierce's football takes were awful. I didn't listen, but tier 5 tonight. I mean, it's pretty interesting. I think most people will be looking at Artemi Panarin. In that game, a pretty big contest against the Blue Jackets and the Lightning, obviously 6.5 on the puck total. I like going to Max Pacioretty, though, I think, if you're going here. And you look at Colorado, they've just been getting worse and worse on special teams. The 4th worst penalty kill coming in. Vegas are small favorites here, even though they're on the road. And, I mean, Pacioretty is one of those players who he's a little bit inconsistent. I mean, he's boom or bust, but when he booms, it can be like a multiple goal night. He gets out there on the power play, so no one else here is really jumping off the page. I get the people going to Panarin, but I like Pacioretty in this tier. Bit of a boomer bust play, like I said, but you got to catch the booms in these things to really win the tier. So,
all right, who lands on your roster from tier 6?
Tier 6, yeah, okay. So we're going to Chicago now. I mentioned that game in the first one. I mean, 7 on the puck total. It's just a massive total. Two teams that just love to score and do not like to play defense. Chicago's favorite, Dylan Strome. For me, would be the pick here. Second line center, but sees time on the first line power play with Patrick Kane. Beside DeBrincat, just a good goal scoring combo. And again, going up against the Senators here. I mean, this is just, I just like this pick overall. It's not even a tier. I mean, he'd be one of my top choices on the slate. You look through the other players on this tier as well. I mean, Dubois, again, kind of the same argument as Panarin. Decent matchup, but not the greatest when you're going against Spalleski in goal. Marchessault, I just think Strome's got better upside. And again, with the San Jose Sharks players, they spread it around a lot. So I like Strome.
Now talk tier 7 to me here, Jeff. And TJ Oshie's this one. I don't know if he's confirmed for tonight. He had that upper body injury yesterday.
Wow, look at you. Injury.
Go Caps.
I'll talk some tier 7 to you, Jeff.
Okay, let's go, Jeff.
Do it.
Screw TJ Oshie. I mean, if I was going to go with the Capital, I'd go with Wilson. He gets to play on the first line. Again, a bit of a boomer bust play, but I'm not going there either. I'm going with Riley Smith. Similar play to the Max Pacioretty thing. I mean, going up against the Colorado Avalanche, it's not a bad matchup. They're small favorites. It's a good matchup for their power play unit, too. This guy sees first line power play time. And again, he's a goal scorer. Sees time in their first line between Carlson. So it's a pretty good spot. He's not exactly the most consistent player, but again, in this spot, in this tier, I like him. And I think, again, Wilson not in a bad spot, but I kind of like Riley Smith. I like the Vegas players tonight for value.
All right, to the final tier of the contest, tier 8, the tier of the working man. Your top pick, please, Jeff.
The working man tier, yeah, I was a little bit undecided here. So I think I'm going to go with David Krejci, though. I do like Anze Kopitar, but David Krejci's been playing really well the last 3 or 4 games for Boston. And I just kind of like Boston as an underdog pick tonight. I think they match up well against San Jose. They got the firepower to keep pace if it does turn into a shootout. And like I said, Krejci on that second line has really been lighting it up lately. Boston's offense tends to be highly sort of concentrated between 3 or 4 players, their top line, their top power play unit. Krejci kind of sometimes sees exposure, mainly a second line power play guy. But with the form he's in, I like going there. I think Kopitar is interesting. Again, going up against the Capitals, not been playing well. He's actually got, I think, over like 10 or 11 points in his last 10 games. So he's in good form. But I think if I had to pick between the two, I'd go Krejci.
All right. It's that moment some have been waiting for. So hit us with your slate-approved pick for the entire 5-game slate.
Okay. It's time.
Do it!
We're going to Chicago. I'm going to go with Chicago. I mentioned them a million times. I think you just got to get exposure to this game. Alex DeBrincat, not really a guy we've talked about too much, but he's only 6,700. He's a goal scorer. Like I said, sees time on the first line power play with Kane and Taves. And again, him and Strome are going to be getting second line even strength minutes against the very weak Ottawa Senators team. I just think you got to get exposure to this game. And I like going into DeBrincat if you got to really choose. He's only 6,700 goal scorer. Like I said, lots of upside tonight. So Alex DeBrincat.
Jeff, great having you on tonight. Great having you talk some hockey, man. Do you miss Reed?
Absolutely not. Where is he? What's he doing?
He's
is he
in
on vacation?
California.
Yeah, he's on his way back.
Wine country.
Right now.
What a slacker.
I know.
That's just the way he lives his life. Thank you, Jeff. We'll see.
Okay,
We'll see who our golf guys believe will return value down in Mexico after Pat Mayo shares his take on this weekend's tournament.
Quick picks. I am betting at 22-1 Xander Schauffele, at 30-1 Hideki Matsuyama, at 35-1 Webb Simpson, and at 175-1 with the top 5 each way. I might even get a top 20 in on that as well. My guy, Danny Willett. Someone on Twitter commented to me. The show, I forget how long the show has been on now.
I know, right?
It was like, why do you like Danny Willett so much? I was like,
it's not fair to be angry about that.
I'm not, but it's so crazy to think that I feel like the only reason people watch this show is because of Danny Willett.
Yes.
That it seems so strange that people wouldn't know the Danny Willett connection.
No, I agree. The reason that we're still doing it is probably because of Danny Willett.
Yeah. He gets to play in WGCs. We get to talk about golf because of Danny Willett winning the Masters.
I like Hideki. I've bet Hideki, Noren at 100, Willett at 175.
And you love Louis.
I told myself I'm going to bet Louis again, but I've got to make a decision near the top. Rahm, Bryson, and Xander are sort of my favorite bettable guys in that low range. And I'll have to bet Tommy Fleetwood because I dared the books to still throw 40s, and I'm not a liar.
Got a lot of guys on this card.
What do you mean?
It's shaping up to... You're going to have like 8 guys by the end of this.
Well, then I won't have anyone under... Then I'm not going to have any of those under 20s.
So I think my final decision comes down to, do I want to go Bryson? Although I kind of talked myself into Phil a little bit too. But Bryson's the one who's really sticking out for me. Or I'll just go down the card and do like Kuchar and Cam Smith or something like that. That would be my final add. And I might not even add anyone else.
Also, maybe it's because like I'll burn the money. But like when I say like Willett and Noren, I'm not even counting those as bets.
It's like my FOMO bets.
Yeah, just
with List.
I know
and
those
Siwoo.
are so big. Like those aren't like my exposure there doesn't even like register when I'm like going to add up what I'll lose this week when no one wins.
Yeah,
that's all I'm like referring to.
One and done picks of the week. I even got Cuss gave me his pick already, so people can know. So Cuss pick for one and done this week, and I like his new strategy of not taking the shittiest guy in the field. It's really improved his game. He is taking Dustin Johnson this week. I actually think that's a good pick.
A year ago, he would have taken
Patton Kizzire.
I would have said like Thorbjorn.
Or Brendan Grace here. Like, no, save those guys for events they can win. So he's taking Dustin Johnson. I'm taking Xander Schauffele. I'm on a pretty good one and done run here. Rory kind of blew it for me, but I got a 4th with Bubba, a 1st with Phil, and a 4th with Rory. Now we're going to the X-Man, and he's getting the win. I will take Webb or Hideki winning in place of Xander, but for the one and done, I got Xander.
I took Hideki last week, so he weaseled a nice spot. It's still not as good as your Rory grab. You know what?
Take Louis. Be a man.
No, I was going to take Sergio. Would that have made me a man? But I don't know if I have those balls.
I like that.
I don't have... No. Rory
McIlroy.
Final block of the show, and we've got DK Live's Matt Jones and DFS expert Jeff Eisenman here to take a gander at some salaries for this weekend's WGC-Mexico Championship.
So, simply put, this is Price Check. So, will the following players return value on their salary? Starting with Rory McIlroy at $11,100. Matt, is he worth it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue against him. Right now, he's had 9 of his last 12 rounds in the 60s, 3 straight top 5s. Like, he's on right now, and I think he can keep it going for a little bit longer here. So, yeah, I think he does well this weekend.
Jeff, can you argue against it?
I can't, and trust me, I'm trying to find a way to disagree here, and I think there's a lot of American fans who, are hesitant to take Rory, but how could you not consider this value after 3 top 5 finishes in his 3 tournaments this season? He only played in this event in 2017 in terms of playing in Mexico, and he came in 7th. So even though he's the 3rd highest priced player on the slate, I'd still believe in him more than Dustin Johnson, who's 2nd.
John Rahm will cost you 10-7. He's a walking top 10 these days, has 6 in a row. So totally worth rostering, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I think same thing, and even more so. I mean, if you have to pick between one of these 2 guys, I would take Rahm. He's a little bit cheaper. And like you said, I mean, 5 straight top fives this in 2019, and before that he won the Hero World Challenge. I think Jon Rahm, beyond just this, he's primed for an incredible year. He's hit that. He's 24 years old. He's been on the tour a couple of years. I expect him, I'm gonna say it, to win a major this year.
Wow.
So I'm going with Rahm.
Matt, and I read this fun stat on the internet today, so it's got to be true. This course is not too far off from the tree-lined ones he grew up playing in Spain. So maybe he'll feel, like he said, home.
Yeah, and I mean, he's shown he can get around here in the past, and I honestly think he's going to win this week, so that would be like pretty good value, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on a $9,800 Brooks Koepka?
Yeah, this is where I'm probably not going to be buying. I like the guy directly above and directly below him, so I don't really see it. He didn't really look that great. Like, he barely finished in the top 60 at the Saudi event. I just don't really feel like paying $9,800 for him this week.
Jeff, do you not feel like paying $9,800?
Well, 1 point on Rahm. He's from, he went to Arizona State, so he's a big fan of the American Southwest. So he always plays well in the North American Southwest. But in terms of Brooks Koepka, I think this is a trap pick. So I don't think he'll return value. He's only come in 24th in the Century, the only event he's played in the U.S. He didn't even play on this whole slate last year. He was injured. I understand why people after 2 majors would take him, but I don't feel comfortable with him this week.
Been a while since he played a PGA Tour event.
How about Big Cat, guys? Tiger Woods, $9,500, making his debut here. Jeff, you on board?
Well, so here's my take. I'm not going to go into like my whole video essay about Tiger Woods.
Go ahead, though.
Do it. We have some time. Do it.
I'll say this.
Tiger,
in his career, has dominated a few courses, and then he's had courses that he just can't play on. Even look at Riviera. He doesn't play well on it, and he showed, he made a push at the end this week. But Tiger playing a course that he's never played in a tournament, I don't trust Tiger Woods. I think if you're going to play Tiger Woods, save that for the Florida swing, where he has always played well. The next 4 tournaments are going to be the Honda, the Arnold Palmer, the Players, and the Valspar Championship. Those are all plays where you should consider Tiger, not here in Mexico.
Another fun fact I found on Google.
The internet.
Playing for the 2nd week in a row tends to benefit Tiger. Listen to this one, Matt. The last 5 instances all netted top 25, including his solo second at the PGA Championship.
Ooh.
How about that for research?
I like it. You don't really have to talk me into Tiger, but yeah, I think he can return value this week. He's the guy directly below Brooks that I just mentioned that I like better. So the par 3 scoring, I mentioned it earlier with DJ. The par 3 scoring was a little rough. He was 9 over last week, which is like wildly concerning. But that round 3 like just makes me feel like he's not that far away from running away with the tournament. So I think I'll take some shares of Tiger this weekend.
Hey, Jeff, when you're looking at all these players, do you have maybe like a dark horse pick for us, a guy you think could sort of come out of the woodwork?
Start at the bottom now with you?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
I do.
he's ready.
Who is it?
I'm going to tell you that I think he's 6,600 this week. I think 6,600. Abraham Answer is technically represents Mexico. He grew up in Mexico. He showed up a couple of times last season, had a couple of good rounds. I can't remember. I don't know if he won, but he was close to winning at one point. So I like the hometown kid and a little bit of a sleeper pick. He's the cheapest player that I'm rostering this week.
Ooh, Matt, do you maybe have a dark horse pick, a sleeper pick for us?
I don't know how popular he's going to be, but for whatever reason, Thorbjorn popped in my mod a little bit, $7,000. So I guess I'll roll with him. I don't know how popular he's going to be this weekend.
Guys, we have about a minute left, but I got to ask you, Matt, how about maybe like a top price guy that you think people should just stay the hell away from? A fade.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Brooks, if he counts in that category, would be my fade.
What about Schauffele? Because he wasn't too hot this weekend, was he?
No, but I think this is the kind of event that he shows up in, and I don't think his game is too far off where he can't put it back together. So I will have some Xander.
All right, cool. What about you, Jeff? Anyone you're just absolutely staying away from?
We talked about him in the first segment, but if people weren't there, Dustin Johnson barely got out to make the cut at Pebble Beach. It just seems like he's not at that point yet that he needs to be at. And like we've been saying, it's kind of, to me, these are two totally different regions. That with this West Coast swing and then the Florida swing, I think Dustin Johnson will play a lot better on the Florida swing.
Excellent
Love
work,
it.
gentlemen. We love it. That's
Thank
a
you,
show. This is The Sweat. We'll be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. Tune in, download the DK Live app, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, which we can't wait for.
That's the worst.
Ow.